Hey there everyone, Daniel Lowrie here with AntiSyphon Training, here to talk to you today about taking practical lab notes. You might be asking yourself, Daniel, real quick before we get too deep in the weeds, what exactly are practical lab notes? That's a great question, I'm glad you asked. And the answer to it is basically anything that you do that's hands-on. Maybe it's an experiment, maybe you're testing something, maybe you're troubleshooting. Any kind of step-by-step walkthrough kind of thing is gonna kind of qualify as a practical lab, something that you do, that you actually do. Now, when it comes to these notes, they need to be very detailed, but to make sure that they have all the little bits and bobs that are necessary, because you got to remember, eventually maybe these things are going to be a while down the road before you actually look at them again. So if you don't have very good detailed notes in there, it's going to be like, why did I do that? Why did I put this here? I don't understand me. What were you thinking, Daniel? I'm not saying that's ever happened, but that has happened from time to time. So with that in mind, you're going to want to think about this being reviewed. Maybe have a friend check out your notes, see if they can follow the bouncing ball, as it were. And if they do find issues or gaps in assumed knowledge or things of that nature, they can point that out. And that's going to help you fill that in a whole lot better and make those notes a whole lot more detailed. Now, there are also some tools in which you can use for taking said notes. You're probably thinking, like most people do, well, yeah, Daniel, I got Word, I've got Google Docs, maybe I'm just using Notepad or Notepad++, or something like Sublime Text, and those are all great, very useful. You can totally do that. Nothing wrong with any of those options. I do want to point out a couple of options that you may not be familiar with, and they can be really useful tools for creating really great notes and details in said notes. One of them is going to be Notion. The other is Obsidian. Now, let's start off with Notion, shall we? Let's jump into my PC. Here is Notion's website. Very cool stuff. It says build something beautiful. This is an online tool for creating notes. Saves everything online. That's going to be awesome, because then you just log into wherever browser you're at, and bada bing, you've got your notes. They might actually also have an applet. That's neither here nor there. So let's kind of roll through here, look at some of the beautiful work that they've done on this website. And you can kind of get the idea, the gist of what's going on. And you can see that there's a sidebar here. You can create all sorts of cool stuff, whether that be graphics, whether that be links, that would just good old-fashioned notes. It is a really excellent tool. I've recently gotten fairly familiar with it, and I've become quite a fan. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I like it a lot. Build perfect together. Of course, you can do collaboration with it as well, because it is online. It's easy to just go, hey, let me invite a friend over here. You can take a look at this and maybe do some of that review we talked about. You can create a workflow, and you can do it your way. Here I am being a pitch man for Notion. Definitely go create a free login for this so you can check it out, mess around with it, see if this is the thing that's right for you. There's another one that's also fairly popular out there. It's more of an app that is downloaded to your desktop. It's a client that sits on your desktop app, I guess is the words I'm looking for. And it's called Obsidian. Let's go back. Here's their website. Obsidian, sharpen your thinking. Obsidian is the private and flexible writing app that adapts to the way you think. Very cool. So you can get the application installed. Well, of course, I'm running Linux, so it's giving me that option. So if you're running Windows or Mac OS, you'll have those options as well, and you get that installed. Now, you can also hit that more platforms just to, if you're looking to get those downloads, you can see that right there. We got iOS, we got Android even, Windows, Mac, Linux, and those can be whether app images, snaps, deb, flat packs. Lots of fun options for us there. Really, really cool stuff. But you download this. It does have a feature for syncing, so kind of like a cloud option where it's storing your files in the cloud. So if you accidentally delete something, or if you want to kind of sync between different devices that you might have, this could be a great way to go. So there you go, Obsidian. Now I did jump and I installed Obsidian so that you can kind of take a look at this. Here it is right here, fairly straightforward, fairly simple. I like it a lot. And we have ourselves a walkthrough, right? A step-by-step guide. Now, let's kind of talk about this before we get too deep in the weeds. And we want to kind of discuss a little bit about how to create practical lab notes. Now that you have a tool that you can create these notes with, you really want to have a plan, a game plan, as it were. I kind of like to call it the Goldilocks method, right? I don't want to have too much info in my notes because then it becomes a book, and that probably isn't necessarily what I'm looking for when it comes to note taking or creating a step-by-step. But I also don't want too little information where you're doing the thing we talked about before, going, what's going on? I feel like you're assuming something and I don't know what that is. So too much notes can be too bad, or too little info can be too bad as well. Looking for that just right amount. Now, of course, that's going to be up to you to try to figure out where that is. It's very subjective to each individual person, what the notes you're taking is going to be and the level of detail that needs to be there. But that's kind of your guiding star, as it were. Am I getting a little too deep on this? Am I getting too crazy? Or do I have it too sparse and I need to fill in the gaps? Other than that, I just want to create some good step-by-steps. Like I said, this is really, those practical labs are going to be kind of a walkthrough kind of thing. So a step-by-step. So let's go back in. I'll just show you what I've done here is I have created a step-by-step for installing the Apache web server. All right, you can see how to install Apache 2 web server. And of course, this is in Linux because that's what I'm using. But if you were running Windows or doing whatever you're doing, make sure you give it the right amount of detail. So I wanted to make sure, hey, you know that this is in a Linux system. And it tells you step 1, open a terminal, right? And you can pick any terminal you like. It doesn't really matter. Step 2, type sudo apt-get update. Make sure you're updating this system. You're getting the latest and greatest. Hit enter or return, depending on your keyboard. And then I put a little note here that says enter your password when prompted, because you will get prompted if you're using sudo. Unless you don't have that. That might. And of course, that brings us to a really interesting thing about note taking. There's usually more than one way to skin a cat. So if you've got more than one way to do things, you're going to create your notes in that way. If you need them to be extremely detailed, that covers a very wide and vast audience, obviously you might want to make a separate set of notes for doing it a different way, because putting it all into one note file could be a bit too much, right? We might be pushing over in that too much info area. So maybe create a separate step-by-step for doing it a different way, and that way you can cover all the audiences if necessary. But this was a prime example of that. Sometimes some users, they type in sudo and they don't have to put in a password, depending on how their system is set up. Most of the time you do, though. So this is probably going to be a much more useful document generally and then the people that don't have their passwords, yes, there will be one or two out there that goes, I'm confused. Why is it? You told me it should be asking for a password and it never did. And that's fine. That's why you create separate notes. So there is that. Now, I moved on, right? I have apt install Apache 2-y. So I press enter. And then, of course, type sudo systemctl status Apache 2. And this is, again, for a specific type of Linux system. Not all Linux systems that do that with the systemctl. Some of them are different, right? So I might want to make another set of notes for that audience again. But if I'm just typing this up for me and the systems that I use, this is going to be just perfect because it's all about what I need for my purposes. And hopefully that's what you get for use as well. Now, I also wanted to take a look at Notion. Like I said, I like Notion a lot. Let's jump over here. Here's my how to install Apache web server with Notion notes. And what's cool about this is you can see I've added some images. And that's the great thing about some of these really cool tools. I think you can do this as well with Obsidian, but here I just did it just to kind of compare and contrast. Same notes, right? But you'll notice I have screenshots with annotations that I've added into my notes, making them much more detailed, making them much more useful. Pictures worth 1,000 words, right? We love pictures. So put in pictures, put in graphs, put in code snippets, web links, tables, charts, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Lots of stuff going on in there. And you can see the actual output of what's going on, what I typed, what the output looked like, showing you and drawing your eye to the important parts of what's going on. So there I am typing Apache 2-y, getting that installed with apt. And then, of course, I used apt and not apt-get. It's a shorthand form. And then right here, you can see me making sure that it's active and running by using systemctl status. It does show active and running. I also have enabled over here, but that was neither here nor there. I'm trying to keep the notes short and useful. So there you go. Very cool stuff. I love Notion. I've really become a fan of it. I think Obsidian's a great tool as well. But hey, it's totally fine if you just want to use Word or Google Docs or something else. Find a great tool that works for you and utilize it to create those notes that you need for performing a step-by-step action, maybe a lab or a walkthrough. And hopefully you find one that is right for you and fits the bill. That said, I've got more to come in this series. Looking forward to seeing you there. And until next time, have a great day.